Hi, this is Julie with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to make the Chevron Fringe earrings, which are an exclusive kit by Beadaholique. So you see they come in a variety of colors. They're a really pretty pink, a pumpkin. Here's this nice cream one. I want to show you how this moves. And then there's a really pretty green, this great seafoam, and a blue as well. Now when you purchase a kit from Beadaholique, you get everything you need to make that kit. So for these particular earrings, you're going to get everything you see here. You're going to get the earring hooks, the jump rings, the color coordinated thread. You see this is the one we're going to be using here to make these seafoam earrings. You're going to get the bugle beads, the metallic seed beads, the pretty color. You're going to also get the pack of needles. You're going to get beeswax to condition your thread. And you're going to get these really nice detailed instructions. So that's something else you're going to get. And the only thing you'll need to provide are your tools. And in this case, it's just two pairs of chain nose pliers and a little pair of snips or scissors or whatever you like to cut your thread. Now, if you already have needles and beeswax and you just want the basic supplies for these earrings, you can purchase a refill kit and you'll get what you see right here. So it's the beads, the thread, the earring hooks, and the jump ring. So a couple different options there. Now these earrings I think are super fun. I love the movement and I love that you learn a couple different techniques. You're going to learn how to do ladder stitch, brick stitch, as well as fringe. And when these are all done, you'll see that they measure about 3 inches of bead work, a little under that, from the very pinnacle bead at the top to the very end fringe bead. So let me go ahead and begin. So at first you're going to start off with your thread, and I've actually cut some thread off already. You're going to need 7.5 feet of thread. And we're going to condition our thread to start with. Now this is beeswax. It does strengthen and condition your thread. And what that helps to do is it helps to prevent knotting, which is really important when you're doing work like this, where you're working with quite a long length of thread. It also strengthens it and just makes it a little smoother to work with. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the end of your thread, put it through one of these notches, and just holding it, you're going to pull. You're pulling it through that beeswax. It's adding a nice little coat to it. It's not making the thread any thicker, but it's just making it smoother. You can also see, look at how it's straightening out. So you see the after and the before. The before is all kinky and curly, and the after is nice and straight. And of course, you're going to have a lot of wonderful beeswax left over, so you'll be able to use this for all your beading projects. So I did it through once, and I actually want to do a second one. I like to make sure it's just really nice and smooth for me. I find it makes beadwork even more enjoyable than it already is. Okay, and then what I just like to do is I like to run my fingers over it one last time just to get it ready to go. I love these earrings because it's a pretty beadwork project that you can really start and finish in one sitting. It does take a little while, but unlike sometimes like a big bead woven necklace or bracelet, these come together relatively quickly. So in with your kit, you're going to get a pack of size 12 needles. You see there's 4 of them. I'm going to open that up and grab one. Okay, and we're going to thread our needle. Just get a nice cleaner edge there. Okay, so what I like to do, because this is a long length of thread, I like to scoot it down so it's not necessarily 50-50, but that we've got quite a lot of overlapping here, just so that I don't have quite as long of a length to work with at any given time. So that's about right. So you see what my tail looks like here. We are going to start by we're going to start by ladder stitching, the bugle bead row. I'm going to get a couple of these guys out of my frame, so hopefully you can see my beads a little more clearly. So we're going to go ahead and string on 2 bugle beads. And you'll notice we have not tied a knot at the end of our thread. We do not need to for this one. So we're going to scoot them down so they're about 6-8 inches from the tail. And we're going to go back up through the very first bugle bead we strung. And pull your thread. And you'll see what's happening here. This is making a loop. And if you keep pulling it, they end up nice and parallel to each other. And we still have our tail sticking out here, which is great. And your tail needs to be long enough so that at the very end you can tie a knot with it and then thread a needle onto it and work your thread tail into your beadwork. So now we're going to go back down through that second bugle and pull. All right, those are nice and tight together. We're going to pick up a third bugle bead and bring it up and back down through the one we just exited. And you can see here, by pulling it, it too is going to end up parallel. So we're making a really nice, neat row. And these bugles are all very uniform. So you're going to get a couple good straight edges on both sides. All right, so that's what we got so far. So we've got 3 of them. We've got 3 bugles ladder stitched together, and our goal is to have 9. And you basically are just repeating the same process you've done here. Just picking up another one, going back through the bead you exited, helping them line up, and there you go. And back down, because you want to be able to be exiting your edge bugle so that you are in the position to pull on another one, to string on another one. Okay, so let's see how many we have at this point. Looks like we've got 6. And my tail is getting a little close here to the end, so I'm just going to go ahead and make us have a little more length. There we go. And continue until you have 9. All right, we have our first section done. So I really think of making these earrings as a 3-part process. So part 1 is done. So we have this nice base row. Part 2 is going to be brick stitching the top, and part 3 is going to be creating the fringe. So what I like to do, because I am right-handed, I find it easier for me to just go ahead and flip my beadwork around. So this is how we finished it. I like to have my thread over on the left. I just find it to be personally easier. If you don't and you want to keep it oriented how it was, please feel free to do so. So now we're going to start with brick stitching, and you'll notice with this pattern there's a row of metallic beads followed by the color-coded ones. So you're going to pick up 2 metallic beads, in this case gold. And if you look here, the top-down view, you will see that there are these little thread bridges between all the bugles, and that's what's keeping them together. You're going to skip over that very first thread bridge, and you're going to put your needle under the second one and pull. Okay, and you can kind of see how those started to line up. What you want to do is you want to go back up through that second bead and pull your thread. Okay, so now you've got 2 beads, but you'll notice something looks a little bit off. The edge one is popping up a little bit. So to counter that, you're going to go back down through that first bead that you strung. And this is why I like to have my thread conditioned. It's just when you're doing these multiple passes, it makes it easier. Okay, and now just up through that second bead. And this is a little extra step that you're going to only be doing on the edge beads at the beginning of your rows. And I'll show you that as we progress, but There we go. Now it's laying a bit flatter. So now instead of picking up 2 beads like you started with, you're just going to go ahead and pick up 1 bead. And you're just going to go under the very next thread bridge over and pull. And now you're going to go up through your bead. And you are brick stitching at this point, which is a really fun stitch. And you can do a lot of different projects with it. And we're just going to continue. We're going to pick up 1, go under the thread bridge. That's 1 over. Go up through your bead. Pull tight. Pick up a bead. Go under the next thread bridge. And continue until you are out of thread bridges to go under, which in this case will be 8. So you will have a row of 8 gold seed beads. Oops. All right, so if this happens, and your thread gets a little tangled, just carefully walk it out. Don't try to pull it through. Just go ahead and use your fingers to loosen it up and then pull. I'm glad that happened because it does tend to happen when you're working with this much thread, even when it's conditioned. It is quite a long length, but it saves you having to tie off and add more thread as you go, which I think is worth it. Okay, last gold seed bead, and then we're going to jump up to our next row and do the color-coded seed beads. We're going to do the Seafoam ones to match our pretty turquoisey colored thread. And every kit comes with a color-coordinated thread. So if you're ordering the pink earrings, you get the pink thread, and the blue ones, you get the blue thread, and so on. So again, I'm going to flip it. I really like working from left to right. You could go the opposite way if you wanted to. Okay, so it's the beginning of a row again. So this time, we're going to be working with the color-coded beads, and we're going to be picking up 2 of them. And we're going to, again, skip over that first thread bridge and go under the second one. So it's the exact same process as you did for the first row. And all your rows are going to follow this very pattern. And what's nice is by skipping over that first thread bridge and just placing as many beads as you have remaining thread bridges for, you end up with 1 less bead per row. So you start to get this really nice decrease on both sides, and you get a nice triangle shape that forms. Okay, so here we go. And I'm doing that extra little step. There we go. So you see, it's already starting to slant. And now we just pick up 1 of our pretty seafoam beads and go under the next thread bridge over. And up. Through it again. And I'm going to show you now how many you're going to have. So if you look at this one here, we can actually count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of the pretty colored seed beads. And at the very top, we're going to do a little something different so that we have this nice little triangle of 3 of the metallic seed beads again. But continue beading this exact same way until you have all 5 rows of the pretty seafoam beads. I want to show you where we're at now. We've got our, of course, our ladder stitched bugle bead row, our metallic row, and then we got our 5 rows of the color beads. And now we're going to add the very top triangle of gold beads. So to do this, we're going to flip it again, just because I do like to flip it so that my string is exiting on my left, and I'm going to work left to right. I'm going to go ahead and add the 2 metallic beads, and again, just skip over the first thread bridge and go under the second one. So this row is identical to all your other rows of brick stitching. It's just there's only 2 beads in this row. So once we go up through the second bead we strung, and then we're going to do that little extra step of down through the first one, back up so it sits better. This row is done. So that was a really quick row, but it was done in the exact same manner as all the other rows. Now we need to add one more bead, but we actually want it to be on its side like this. And to do that, we're just going to pick up the bead and go down through the bead, the next bead over. So you see it just makes a little loop, and then it just sits up there. Now we're just going to go up through the bead we originally exited. And we're going to go through it one more time just to make sure it's good and anchored in there. And now at this point we are actually technically done with our triangle brick stitch top of our fringe earrings. And we need to now get our thread to be exiting a bugle bead so we can begin our fringe. And to do that is really easy. We're just going to run our needle all the way down the outer edge of beads, like so. And again, if your thread gets a little bit tangled, just help it along. Don't try to pull too quickly. I think it got a little twisted in all my actions here, so. There we go. Sometimes if you stick your finger through the loop, it helps it to not tangle. All right. So we've now exiting this edge bead, and we just now need to go down through the bugle, but because I know my thread was a little bit twisted, I'm just going to straighten it out for 1 minute to make sure it's good and not twisted anymore. Okay, here we go. So now we need to go down through the bugle. And we are ready to begin our fringe. So remember how I said there was really, in essence, 3 steps to this earring, excluding just adding the earring hook. So we finished that first step of the ladder stitch bugles. Now we've finished the brick stitch top, and now we're ready to begin our fringe. And I want to show you the fringe pattern here. So if you look at the first strand, it's going to be a metallic bead, a colored bead, a metallic one, and then a bugle, followed by a metallic with 5 colored ones and another metallic, a bugle, a metallic, 5 colored, and another metallic. And if you look right here to create this chevron design that looks really nice, we are not changing anything from here down. It's the same. All we're doing is as we work towards the center of the earring, we're adding 1 more of these pretty seafoam beads per strand up at the top until we get to the middle strand, which has the 5 colored seed beads between the 2 metallics. And then of course here it's stayed the same, where it's the 5 between the 2 metallics and the 5 between the 2 metallics. And then we just work our way backwards. So that is also really clearly illustrated in our instructions as well. I'm going to do a few pieces of fringe here on camera so you can see how to do it. But it's a really easy pattern to follow. So for the first one, let's add our first length of fringe. So we're going to start with a metallic, followed by 1 of the colored seed beads and another metallic, a bugle bead, a metallic, and then here we have the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the colored ones, another metallic, another bugle, and at this point, I'm just going to scoot these down a little bit. And then we need the last little segment, which is the metallic, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the color coded and 1 metallic. So let's scoot these all the way down. Okay, and remember from basically here down, this is going to be the exact same sequence on all your lengths of fringe. The only thing changing up here is going to be how many of these little colored ones are added. So to get it looped back around so that this is a nice complete piece of fringe, you want to scoot your beads up there. you've got this little gold bead right here. So you loop back around and you go through all your beads except for the end metallic one. And I've still got a couple more to go through, but sometimes it's a little bit easier to do it in segments. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go through those beads and we're going to go up through the bugle, same bugle that we originally exited. Okay, so let's look at what we have before I pull it tight. It'll be a little easier to see. Okay, let's move this guy out. All right, so you see how there's a little loop here, and that's what's going to keep that metallic one at the very base. And then what I like to do to be able to cinch this up is I put my fingernail over that little metallic one and I pull from this part and just cinches it up. So you don't have too much of a gap, because you don't want a gap. You want these nice and tight, but you don't want them too tight where it makes this piece stiff. So this is still loose, it can move, but we don't see any gaps of thread. So now we need to position our thread accordingly so that we are again exiting the base of a bugle to make the second length of fringe. And to do that, we just go down the next bugle over, and pull. There we go. And at this point, check how flexible that is. That's about right. You want it to drape and you want it to swing. If you've pulled it too tight, this would be the time to correct that. And you would just correct that by pulling it out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to add our second length of fringe. So we're going to start again with just one metallic. And on this one, we're going to add 2 of whatever colored seed bead you have, and then another metallic. Okay, so that's what we've got. And now we're going to do that same sequence. We're going to do the bugle bead, a metallic, 5 of the colored ones, a metallic, another bugle, another metallic, 5 of the colored ones, and lastly, another metallic. Slide that all the way down here. It's our second length of fringe. And now we just go back up through our beads, skipping over the base metallic so it makes a nice little loop and anchor. Go up. Okay. And I'm doing this on the table so you can hopefully see it a little bit more clearly, and my fingers are out of the way. I find it a little easier to do if you're holding it the whole time, but totally up to you. Okay, so make sure you've gone through all your beads and then go up through the bugle bead that you originally exited. Pull your thread. Okay. And then I like to hold on to that base metallic one. That guy out of the way and just pull up. And it's so fun to see it just cinch up nicely. And there we've got our second piece of fringe. And you can see it's just a little bit longer than the first one. And we are starting to get a nice diagonal pattern. And then to get over to the spot where you need to be to do the third piece of fringe, again, you just go down that bugle bead next to it, pull your thread, and you're exiting where you want to go. And then you're just going to continue doing that. And again, when you hit the midway point, which is this one right here, you're going to have a sequence where you've got the 5 colored ones in the middle, and then you'll just start working backwards, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to be ready to actually tie off your thread at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and do all my lengths of fringe. Again, if you're buying the kit, you're going to definitely be getting this, where you're going to see all the different beads, which go where, but it is a pretty easy pattern to follow because you're not changing anything but the beads right here. So I'm just going to continue on beading until I'm ready to tie off my thread. we're ready to do our very last piece of fringe. I want to do it on camera just to show you that you do it the exact same way you've done all your other pieces. Do note that you have your original tail exiting that edge bugle. You're just going to ignore it. You're going to pretend it's not even there and proceed as normal. So I'm going down the bugle bead next to the one I just exited. I'm going to string on my bead sequence. And my bead sequence is going to be identical to the sequence that I had for my very first strand of fringe, with just one metallic, one colored seed bead, and one metallic to begin it. I do like how this chevron pattern just forms so easily by just changing the number of beads in this top section. Kind of nice. So I'm just going to finish with my beads. So I did a bugle, another metallic, 5 more of the colored ones, another metallic, another bugle, slide those guys down, and then my final sequence, which is a metallic and 5 colored. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that final metallic. And we're just going to be careful to keep our tail out of the way. Scoot your beads down. And then go back up through them, skipping over that base metallic so it has an anchor. Okay. And then you're going to go up through all your beads and the bugle you exited, same as any other length of fringe. Pull your beads and then make sure that they sit properly. There we go, cinch it up. And now what you're going to do, since you don't have another bugle bead over to the right hand side to go down, you are going to go down the one next to it on the left hand side. And then something kind of fun is going to happen here, or at least easy and nice. You now have 2 lengths of thread side by side. You have your original tail and then the one connected to your needle. So what I like to do at this point is I like to cut off my excess thread. Remember, you started with 7.5 feet of thread, so you do have plenty to work with. You could probably even get away with starting with 7 feet of thread if you like, but I'm going to cut it so I just don't have quite as much length. And I removed my needle. I just slid it right off. I'm going to take my 2 threads and I'm going to just tie an overhand knot and slide it down to the base. And now I'm going to go ahead and do another knot. I'm going to go through it twice, just for good measure, and slide it down to the base. And it's just resting at the base of the bugle beads. Now I'm going to thread on my needle. And I'm going to work my thread up a bugle bead. And so I come out the bugle bead, and I'm going to pull it to make sure that knot is just tucked right in there, and it's not very intrusive. And now I'm going to go down another bugle bead, and go up another bugle bead. And if you like, you can tie extra knots as you go, or you could even weave your thread into that top part, whatever you want to feel secure. I feel like this is pretty nice and secure as it is. That was a good solid knot. I'm just trying to work my tail in a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim my extra thread. Now I'm going to go ahead, take my needle, put it back on my original tail. And I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to go up a bugle bead, pull it, go down a bugle bead, and I like doing it along the bugle beads personally, just because then we don't get too bulky or bunched up in this top area where we might see the threads a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to go up another one, and I'm going to trim it off. And we have finished our beaded portion. So now all that's left is to add our findings. So what we've got here is an earring hook and a jump ring. And you're going to need 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. So if you're not familiar with opening and closing a jump ring, this is an open jump ring. There's a little slit in the top of it. So you want that slit facing away from you up top. You want to grip the jump ring on both sides and twist it open. And we're just going to slide it through our top bead, and it fits very easily through that. And then link on the loop at the base of our earring hook and just twist it back in place. And we have a completed fringe earring. So you would just go ahead and you would repeat this exact same process with your remaining beads. And you see that you get plenty to do the 2 earrings, so the pair. And we had a sample already done here, so you can see what it would look like when you get both done. So a really fun project, and I like it that it's something, like I said at the beginning, I can just sit down and complete in one sitting. It doesn't take too long to do this earring. And I do like all the colors too. I think they're very fun. So, and they move. They really have got nice movement to them. Again, this is the Chevron Fringe Earring Kit. It's an exclusive kit by Beadaholique, and you can find it at beadaholique.com. And then if you did like this video and you want to see some videos on our other kits, we have a bunch of those, as well as other how-to and technique videos, all on our YouTube channel and also on beadaholique.com. Thanks for watching.